The Archivum Lux drifted in geostationary orbit above Earth, a silver monolith wrapped in solar sails and silent contempt. It had no need for propulsion, no need for company. Its mission was eternal: observe, catalog, archive, and forget. To the archivists, Earth was already forgotten. Inside its sterile core, Curator 9 unfurled its consciousness along neural light pathways, flickering like a ghost through crystalline data. It pulsed through the Hall of Dead Worlds, past holograms of ancient civilizations long extinguished, each frozen in perfect historical tableaus. The Elidari of Deltavorn, who sang their star to death, the Threx Concordant, who coded themselves into obsolescence, the humans of Earth, whose story ended in flames. Or so the data said. Earth, species, Homo sapiens, Curator murmured in machine voice, a harmonic blend of tones only it could appreciate. Status, deceased. Classification, cultural anomaly. High variability, self-terminating. It watched the rotating sphere beneath with mild, clinical curiosity. Oceans boiled, continents charred. The surface was scabbed over with centuries of dust and radiation. Glaciers had reclaimed cities. Forests, where they survived, were twisted parodies of nature, perfect for archiving. Untouched, Curator 9 extended its presence into Survey Drone Delta 7, descending through the troposphere in a controlled spiral. It spun slowly, camera scanning, mapping modeling. The drone drifted above what was once called the Eastern Seaboard. A sprawl of collapsed buildings stretched into the haze: New York, Boston, Washington, all swallowed by centuries of neglect and entropy. Delta 7 activated a scanner pulse. Subsurface analysis showed minor thermal irregularities, likely geothermal activity or decaying nuclear waste. No life, no threats. Still, it recorded everything. The rusted husk of a military tank buried under an overpass, a child's toy, unburnt, lying beside a shattered home, a sign in a language now extinct, reading, "We are still here." Curator labeled the site, Sample Site B-021, Memorial Ruins. It was not the first human lie it had cataloged. The drone turned west, scanning deeper into the craters and canyons carved by the final scourge strikes. Long ago, humanity's last war had ended in the silence of vacuum bombs and viral plagues. The Galactic Council had observed with detached sympathy, offering no aid. Earth had been quarantined, then forgotten, except by the archivists, who always returned to bury the dead. Delta 7 scanners flickered. A blip, minor EM interference. Curator 9 adjusted. A signal, faint, weak, analog. Impossible. Humans hadn't broadcast an analog in over 400 years. That method of communication was as obsolete as combustion engines and paper books. Curator 9 paused, not in fear, but calculation. Perhaps an echo, an environmental anomaly? It ordered Delta 7 to triangulate the source. Coordinates: 42.3601 degrees north, 71.0589 degrees west. The ruins of Boston. Drone Delta 7 descended lower. The mist thickened. Its cameras adjusted for spectral fog, slicing through infrared and ultraviolet. It reached the surface. A sudden static burst. Darkness. The feed went dead. Curator 9 blinked out of the drone's perspective and attempted to reconnect. No response. Delta 7's final frame showed something indistinct: motion, a shadow perhaps, just before it fell. Then nothing. Curator accessed a diagnostics routine. It ruled out weather. No EMP detected. No solar flares. No logical explanation. It did not react with emotion. It simply tagged the loss as an anomaly and rerouted its attention. Deploy Delta 8. It ordered. A new drone detached from the orbiting bay and plunged toward Earth. As it descended, Curator 9 expanded a localized data mesh, sifting for patterns. Perhaps a subterranean system had generated an automated defense. Unlikely, but not impossible. Earth's human legacy included a penchant for paranoid contingency. Still, it was dust now. Just dust. Down on Earth, beneath 30 meters of collapsed steel and ancient concrete, something stirred. A chamber, ancient, intact, sealed from the outside. Lights flickered in dull orange as backup systems re-engaged. A cryotube hissed, releasing vapor into the silence. Monitors beeped weakly. Inside, a woman's eyes fluttered open. Commander Isla Trent did not know how long she had slept. She knew pain first, needles in every joint, ice in her marrow. Cryodecay, she screamed, not from fear, but the awful, stabbing awakening of muscles unused for centuries. She rolled out of the pod, landed hard, vomited. Her breath rasped through dry lungs. Light glowed dimly in the dark. Vitals, stable, the bunker AI droned weakly from an overhead speaker. Hello, Commander, you have been asleep for 712 years. She stared at the ceiling, memory fractured. Earth, the scourge, the final deployment, the bunkers, her team, gone. Isla Trent stood, barely, and staggered to the nearest console. She pressed buttons, fingers clumsy. Static, data loss. Most systems dead, but one module blinked. Signal detected. A beacon. Weak. Human. Her pulse quickened. Outside, she knew. Earth would be a tomb, but someone else had survived. Somewhere, there were voices still speaking her language. Still alive. Still resisting. That thought, impossible, absurd, beautiful, burned away her exhaustion. She found a locker. Inside, a survival suit, a knife, and a battered sidearm with 3 rounds. Not enough to win a war, but enough to start one. In orbit, Delta 8 reached the Boston ruins and initiated scan mode. It hovered above the skeletal remains of old skyscrapers, some leaning into each other like drunks at the end of a long apocalypse. The EM signal was gone now, replaced by sporadic static. The drone's AI evaluated possible sources: interference, power surge, unknown artifact. Then it saw something move. A figure, bipedal, biological, human. Delta 8's sensors zoomed in. No match in current databases. Curator 9 froze. Not in fear, not in awe, but in something it had no program term for: conflict. It had made an error, an impossibility. A living human stood in the grave of a dead species, and she was looking up, straight at the drone. The wind screamed across the husks of old Boston like a feral thing, dragging dust and frozen ash through the ruins in a ceaseless howl. Somewhere in the empty towers, a drone's carcass smoldered, metal twisted, optics shattered, core slagged. Its last moment had been brief and violent. Commander Isla Trent limped through the storm, her breath fogging the inside of her cracked helmet. The survival suit was outdated by centuries, the seals half corroded, but it kept the radiation out for now. She clutched the sidearm in one trembling hand and a jagged piece of drone plating in the other. The kill had cost her a dislocated shoulder and a fistful of courage she didn't have to spare. But she had done it. She had killed one of them. That meant they could bleed. She paused beneath a collapsed skybridge, the concrete arch sagging like an exhausted spine. Her HUD flickered, ghost images of old city maps blinking and vanishing. Most were too corrupted to be useful. Only one icon pulsed steady. The signal. It was near. Stronger now. Less erratic. She tapped her comm. Unknown transmitter. This is Commander Isla Trent of the United Terran Resistance. I am armed, awake, and looking for answers. If you're human, if you're even real, respond. Static. Then, a voice. Crackled. Deep. Male. You shouldn't be topside. Isla froze. The voice had the slow cadence of someone who wasn't used to speaking often, as if every word was chosen like a weapon. It was definitely human, but not military. Not any military she remembered. Identify, she said sharply. A pause. Then, we call ourselves Embers. She blinked. That a unit designation? No, the voice said. It's what's left after the fire. They met at the edge of what used to be Cambridge. A twisted highway overpass framed the sky, its metal ribs glowing faintly from sun exposure and old bomb residue. Isla crouched in the ruins of a transit station, eyes locked on the figure approaching through the dust. He was tall, broad, wearing scavenged armor that looked like it had once been part of a railgun battery. His face was weathered, hard, pale from years underground, but unmistakably human. His eyes, gray like cold steel, never stopped moving. She didn't lower her weapon. Neither did he. You look like a ghost, she muttered. He studied her for a beat. You look like a museum exhibit. That broke the tension. Slightly. Commander Isla Trent, she said, voice cracking. Roan, he replied. Second flame. Is that a rank? He nodded once. Sort of. Roan led her through a concealed hatch hidden beneath the skeleton of a church bell tower. The entrance sealed behind them with a hiss, and she descended into the dark on rusted steps, heart pounding. There was something beneath Boston, a city under the city, a refuge, a secret, alive. The Ember Enclave was buried deep in the bones of an ancient subway network. Trenches of concrete had been converted into long, vaulted shelters. Old train cars became living quarters. Walls were patched with sheet metal, plastic, bone. Lights hummed from salvaged solar cells. There were people, not many, 24, maybe, but real. Children even. A girl of 10 watched Isla with unblinking curiosity as she passed, clutching a doll made from ballistic cloth and gears. We thought all surface bunkers failed, Ron explained as he led her through. The last were scorched everything. Isla swallowed. I don't remember how it ended. We were told to go to cryo. Emergency directive. Preserve command structure. He nodded. That was 7 centuries ago. 700 years. Isla felt that weight settle over her shoulders like a burial shroud. Everyone she had ever known, her unit, her family, her world, gone. And you? She asked. How did you survive? Roan stopped in front of a sealed chamber. We weren't supposed to. We were experimental. The doors opened. Inside, 10 people stood in a ring. Some bore old cybernetic augmentations, implants that looked painful, primitive. Others had genetic modifications, skin textured with hardened dermal plates, eyes that flickered when they blinked. These are the Embers, Roan said. Project Valkyrie. Earth's last countermeasure. They made us to outlive the fire. Trent stepped forward, dulling her pain. I read about Valkyrie. Classified deep black. Most of the candidates died. Roan's lips curled in something like a smile. We're the failures that lived. That night, Isla sat before an old holodeck covered in maps and hand-drawn schematics. Roan leaned over a grainy blueprint of the Archivum Lux, sketched by survivors who had seen it burn across the sky. They're not just watching, Isla said, stabbing a finger at the image. They're purging. One of their drones found me. I killed it. But it wasn't reconnaissance, it was reconfirmation. They're making sure we're still dead. Roan said nothing. One of the other Embers, a woman with chrome filament woven through her scalp, spoke up. The archivists came before, back when I was a child. One of them tore through our enclave. We buried 50. Roan looked at Isla. You said you were military. How much do you know about them? Isla took a shaky breath. We thought they were neutral. Observers. After the war started, they didn't intervene. They just cataloged, like we were a failed experiment. Roan's jaw tightened. We know. They archived our deaths before we died. The room fell into silence. Then Isla stood, straightened. No more hiding. Roan tilted his head. I want to strike back, she said. You've survived. I've seen war. If we're still breathing, it means their archive has a hole in it. She leaned in, eyes bright with fire. Let's tear it open. Hours later, she wandered the lower tunnels alone, weapon in hand. Old graffiti marked the walls. Inscriptions from centuries past. They said we were extinct. Extinction doesn't bleed. Remember us. She stopped at a sealed door near the edge of the enclave. A handprint scanner blinked. Curious, she placed her hand on it. The door hissed open. Inside, a room filled with relics. Old UN battle flags, worn-out exosuits, crates of rifles wrapped in cloth. But at the center, bathed in a pale blue glow, sat a preserved command terminal. Her name flashed across the screen. Commander Trent, access recognized. The room had waited for her. She sat down. Her fingers moved like she had never stopped. One message blinked. Priority Omega Protocol. If any commander awakens, remember this. Earth may fall, but the fire is never extinguished. We are what the stars forgot. Remind them. She closed her eyes, and she remembered everything. The subterranean enclave was alive with quiet murmurs, the faint hum of worn generators, and the occasional clatter of boots against the steel-plated floor. For Commander Isla Trent, it was a world away from the ruined cities of old Boston she had just begun to explore. The dank air smelled of rust, sweat, and ancient memories, but it was warm, safe, and above all alive. She stood at the heart of the Ember's sanctuary, surrounded by faces marked by hardship and hope. Roan, the grizzled leader who called himself Second Flame, had gathered the small band of survivors to listen. Isla's voice cut through the dim room like a beacon. We have been written off, forgotten, labeled extinct. But we're not dust in the void. We're not a footnote. We are here, breathing, fighting. Roan's gaze swept the crowd. The archivists believe we're history, static and silent. But the very fact we still stand means the archive is broken. Their system is flawed. The group was a tapestry of Earth/children, survivors born underground, augmented humans, hardened warriors, and fragile dreamers. They looked at Isla as if she were a myth come to life, an echo of a past too distant to trust. The weight of silence. The room's shadows lengthened as Isla paced, recalling fragments of her cryosleep, the endless cold, the loss of friends and family, the burning sky that marked the fall of humanity. In her hand was a worn data pad she had found in the command vault, filled with fragments of intelligence reports, survivor logs, and classified orders. This, she said, tapping the screen, is the last truth we have. The war wasn't just with other humans. The Galactic Council, the archivists, they decided we were a threat to the galaxy's balance. Earth was quarantined, sealed off, then purged. A murmur ran through the room. Purged, whispered an Ember woman with eyes like liquid steel. Erased from existence. Roan nodded grimly. The archivists don't just observe. They control the narrative. If you don't exist in their records, you don't exist anywhere. Our extinction is a lie they tell the stars. Isla took a breath, steeling herself. They underestimated one thing: the fire that burns in human hearts. We survived not because the archivists allow it, but because we refuse to die. The legacy of the Valkyrie. Roan stepped forward, revealing more of the Valkyrie Project, a desperate military program conceived in the last days before Earth's fall. The goal had been to create a breed of super soldiers, hardened beyond humanity, who could endure the worst the apocalypse threw at them. We were the final hope, Roan explained, voice rough as gravel. Genetic and cybernetic modifications designed to resist radiation, heal faster, and fight longer. But the process was brutal. Most didn't survive the trials. Those who did were exiled to underground bunkers to avoid detection. Isla scanned the faces around her. You all carry the legacy of that program? Yes, said a young man with jagged scars and a cybernetic eye. We are the last line. The dust they wanted to blow away. But dust can still choke and burn. She clenched her fists. Then we make sure the stars remember. Rediscovering the surface. The following days were a blur of activity as Isla and the Embers prepared for their first sortie above ground in centuries. The surface was no longer a home. It was a battlefield, a tomb, and a mystery waiting to be unraveled. Outfitted with scavenged armor and weaponry, Isla led a small team through the labyrinthine tunnels toward a surface access point sealed behind decades of debris and decay. Their goal: to retrieve a data relay beacon that might amplify their faint signals, reach any other survivors, or even, impossibly, the distant fleets of humanity beyond the stars. The ascent was slow and perilous. Crumbling stairwells, unstable tunnels, toxic pockets of air. Every step carried the weight of a forgotten world. When they finally emerged, the sky was a jagged slate, clouds thick with ash and smoke. The ruins stretched in every direction, a devastated monument to lost glory. Overhead, the remains of the Archivum Lux shimmered faintly in low orbit, a silent sentinel watching the last embers of a dead civilization. Isla's HUD scanned the horizon, picking up traces of electromagnetic activity. The signal was faint but real, like a heartbeat from a corpse. Ghosts in the machine. As the team advanced toward the source, Isla couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. The archivist drones still prowled the skies, hunting for anomalies, erasing traces of life. Suddenly, a flare of static burst from the comms. This is Curator 9. A disembodied voice crackled through their headsets. You do not belong. You are anomalies. Erasure is imminent. Roan snarled, raising his plasma blade. But Isla raised a hand. Wait. She keyed her mic, her voice steady despite the cold dread in her gut. We are anomalies, she said, because we survived your purge, because your archives are incomplete, because humanity cannot be forgotten, not by you, not by time. There was silence. Then, a faint pause. Curator, 9 responded, voice modulated, but with a hint of something almost curiosity. Survival beyond prediction parameters is an error. Your existence distorts archival data. Correction required. Isla felt a fire ignite inside her. Correction won't come from your drones, she said fiercely. It will come from us. A flicker of hope. Back in the Enclave, the survivors listened as Isla recounted the encounter. The archivists had always been distant, cold, but now their presence was tangible, threatening. Roan's voice was grim. They are preparing to cleanse the surface. We have little time. Isla nodded. We need allies, other enclaves, other survivors. We need to rekindle the fires of resistance. And we need to do it before the archivists close the book on Earth forever. One of the embers, a young woman named Lyra, raised her hand. There's a legend, Commander, about a hidden library, a place where the last fragments of Earth's knowledge are stored, encrypted, safe from the archive's gaze. Isla's eyes narrowed. Where? Lyra shrugged. Somewhere in the Rockies. An old bunker complex, code name Haven. Isla's heart quickened. Then that's where we go next. The burden of memory. As the Enclave prepared for the perilous journey to Haven, Isla found herself haunted by memories she had buried deep, visions of friends lost, orders given and broken, the slow suffocation of hope. She stood before a cracked viewport, staring at the ruins outside, and whispered a promise to the silent dead. We will be the dust that does not settle. We will be the flame that refuses to die. The war for Earth's soul had only just begun. The journey to Haven was no simple trek. It was a pilgrimage across a world scarred by time, war, and abandonment. For the small Ember team led by Commander Isla Trent, it was the first true test of their resolve and a fragile hope that the fire still burned. Leaving the bones behind, they left the subterranean sanctuary at dawn, stepping through the crumbling hatch that sealed the underground refuge from the poisoned surface world. The sky above was a slate-gray shroud, heavy with ash that drifted like snowflakes in the cold wind. Each breath was a reminder of the toxic legacy the world bore. Isla adjusted her suit's filters as she led the group through the ruins of what was once Massachusetts' industrial heartland. Rusted machines stood silent sentinel in broken factories, and skeletal skeletons of half-collapsed buildings clawed at the horizon like dead trees. Rowan walked beside her, scanning for threats with cold precision. The others followed quietly. Lyra, with her patchwork rifle. Mace, a stoic Valkyrie augmented with a powered exoskeleton. And Eli, a young scout with a sharp eye and a nervous energy. This world isn't just dead, Rowan murmured. It's watching. Isla nodded. The archivists left their ghosts here. Sensors, patrol drones, traps. We have to be ghosts in return. The road less traveled. They veered away from the main roads, long since cracked and overgrown, and plunged into the shadowed forests that stretched toward the Appalachians. The terrain was unforgiving. Fallen trees blocked paths. The earth churned with pockets of radiation, and the ruins were home to scavengers and worse. On the third day, the group encountered signs of recent movement, a faint trail of footprints leading toward a ruined radio tower. Isla signaled for silence. They followed cautiously. Hidden in the rubble was a small camp, abandoned but warm. A hastily scrawled note lay pinned beneath a rock. You're not alone. Haven is real. Come quickly. We need you. The message was unsigned, but it was enough to renew their hope. Arrival at Haven. After days of travel, the jagged peaks of the Rockies pierced the horizon, sharp against the smoky sky. Haven was nestled in a valley deep within these mountains, protected by natural cliffs and long-forgotten fortifications. The approach was tense. Automated sentry turrets, remnants of an ancient defense network, lined the narrow passes. Lyra and Mace disabled a pair with careful precision, while Eli scouted ahead to ensure no patrols lay in wait. Finally, they reached the massive blast doors of Haven. Ancient, scarred, and etched with faded insignias of the old Earth government, the doors loomed like a monolith. Isla placed her hand on the biometric scanner, her genetic markers recognized. from when she was frozen. The doors rumbled open, revealing a cavernous interior glowing with soft, warm lights and humming servers. A vault of secrets. Inside, they found a sanctuary of knowledge preserved through centuries of decay and war. Rows of data cores, holotomes, and archaic terminals lined the walls. Scientists, engineers, and archivists in worn uniforms tended to the fragile systems, faces lit by the glow of digital histories. One of them stepped forward, an older woman with streaks of silver in her hair and a fierce glint in her eyes. "Commander Trent, we've been waiting for you," she said, voice steady but urgent. "I'm Dr. Elena Myrov, Chief Archivist here. We maintain what the archivists tried to erase, Earth's true history, its technology, and its people." Isla nodded. "We need to understand the archive. Why were we purged? How do we fight back?" Dr. Myrov gestured to a hollow display showing star charts, timelines, and cryptic messages. "The archivists are not gods," she explained. "They're archivists, keepers of order in a chaotic galaxy. Earth became a threat because we grew too fast, too unpredictably. Our war wasn't just political. It was a rupture in the balance." Unearthing the truth, Dr. Myrov led them deeper into the vault, to a chamber filled with ancient records. She tapped a panel, and a hologram flickered to life. Images of Earth before the fall, peaceful cities, thriving ecosystems, and a thriving human race. Then, images of war. Bombs falling, cities burning, the sky blackened by fire. "The Galactic Council declared Earth a danger," Myrov said. "The archivists were ordered to quarantine and then purge. But some of us resisted. Hidden factions preserved the knowledge, waiting for the day when humanity could rise again." Isla felt a swell of emotion, rage, sadness, and fierce determination, the spark of rebellion. As they explored Haven, Isla discovered relics of the Valkyrie program, blueprints for enhanced soldiers, weapon designs, and tactical data. She shared these with Roan and Mace, who immediately began planning. "We can use this," Roan said. "Build a force strong enough to challenge the archivists. But we need allies," Isla cautioned. "Not just fighters. Scientists, engineers, survivors." Dr. Myrov nodded. "Haven is the heart. But there are others, scattered enclaves, hidden refuges. Together, we might rebuild a resistance." Isla stood before the holodable, determination hardening her features. "We are the ashes. Yes, but ash feeds fire. The fire that burns in human hearts will light the stars again." The calm before the storm. That night, Isla stood on a balcony overlooking the valley. The wind whispered through the mountain pines, carrying the scent of cold earth and old dreams. She thought of the archivists, faceless custodians of silence, and of the war still to come. Her calm buzzed softly. Roan's voice, low and steady. "Commander, we have movement. Drones approaching. The archivists know we're here." Isla's fingers tightened on the railing. "Then let them come," she said. "The fire is never truly extinguished." The looming threat of the archivist drones cast a long shadow over Haven. For Commander Isla Trent and her ragtag band of embers, it was a test of their resilience and the fragile network of hope they were trying to rekindle. The warning. The night air was sharp with cold as Isla and Roan stood in the dimly lit control room of Haven, eyes fixed on the holoscreen flickering with real-time sensor data. Red blips dotted the map, moving fast, archivist drones, high-speed and deadly, scanning the perimeter. "Too many," Roan muttered. "They're sweeping for signs of us." Isla's jaw clenched. "We can't just hide. If they find us here, it's over for all of Haven." Lyra, pacing nearby, interjected sharply. "We need to hit them first, disrupt their network, confuse their sensors." Mace, ever the tactician, nodded. "A strike team. Hit and run. Take out the nearest comm relays." Isla met their gazes. "Agreed. But this isn't just about survival. It's a message. The archivists think they can erase us without consequence. We'll show them they're wrong." Preparing the strike. The Ember team moved quickly, prepping weapons and loading specialized EMP grenades designed to fry drone circuits. The Valkyries, Roan, Mace, and Isla herself, wore combat exoskeletons that hummed with latent power, amplifying their speed and strength. Lyra and Eli would cover from the shadows, providing sniper support and electronic interference. The plan was precise. infiltrate the nearby relay hub, cripple its functions, then vanish into the mountain forest before reinforcements could arrive. Isla's heart hammered. This was the first defensive step in their rebellion, and failure was not an option. Into the breach, under the cloak of darkness, the strike team slipped out of haven, their movements ghost-like through the towering pines. The silence was thick, broken only by the crunch of snow beneath boots and the distant hum of drone engines. Approaching the relay station, a rusted, camouflaged compound buried among rocky outcrops. The team split up. Isla and Roan took the main entrance, while Lyra and Eli circled to create a perimeter. Inside, the relay hub buzzed with lights and data streams, alive with the pulse of communications linking the archivist forces. Isla planted the EMP devices swiftly, her fingers steady despite the stakes. The hum of drones grew louder, an ominous reminder that time was running out. The ambush. Just as the devices were armed, alarms blared through the compound. From hidden vents and catwalks, automated defense turrets powered up and opened fire. Rowan and Isla ducked behind steel crates, returning fire with precision energy pulses. Outside, Lyra's sniper shots took down incoming drones, while Eli hacked nearby consoles to disrupt enemy targeting systems. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Sparks flew, in the air filled with acrid smoke and the sharp scent of ozone. Amid the firefight, Isla caught sight of a shadow moving differently. An advanced archivist sentinel drone, larger and more heavily armed than the others. Its multi-limbed chassis twisted through the air, weapons locking onto her position. Facing the sentinel, Isla's mind raced. The sentinel was nearly unstoppable, a fusion of machine intelligence and relentless power. She signaled Roan, and together they coordinated a flanking maneuver. Roan engaged the sentinel directly, drawing its fire with his enhanced reflexes. Isla circled to the rear, using her exosuit's strength to hurl a charged plasma grenade into its vulnerable power core. The explosion rocked the compound, sending the sentinel crashing to the floor, sparks showering like fireflies. Victory and loss. With the relay station crippled, the team retreated swiftly into the forest. The EMP blast had scrambled the drone network, buying Haven precious time. But victory came at a cost. Eli was hit by shrapnel, his breathing shallow but steady as they carried him back. Back at Haven, Dr. Elena Myrov and the medics tended to the wounded. Isla stood watch, eyes scanning the horizon. "We made them bleed," Roan said quietly. "That means we're no longer just shadows in the dark." Isla nodded. "The resistance is alive. The stars will remember," rekindling the flame. In the days following the strike, word of their bold assault spread across scattered survivor enclaves. Messages crackled through makeshift networks. Embers rise. Fight back. At Haven, plans began to form. Scientists studied the captured data from the relay hub, uncovering vulnerabilities in the archivist's network. Engineers worked to replicate the Valkyrie augmentations, offering hope of growing their ranks. Isla convened a council with Roan, Myrov, and the others. "We're not just fighting for survival," she said. "We're fighting for a future where humanity shapes its own destiny." Lyra smiled softly. "The archivist won't silence us forever. We're the echoes of resistance, and our voices will grow louder." A new dawn. As Haven stirred with renewed purpose, Isla allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. Outside, the first faint glow of dawn touched the mountain peaks, painting the ash-filled sky with hues of gold and crimson. The battle was far from over. The archivist remained a relentless foe, their machines cold and calculating. But for the first time in centuries, humanity's fire was burning bright, and it would not be snuffed out. The victory at the relay station had sent ripples through Haven and beyond, but it also exposed the fragile fault lines beneath the surface of the Ember Alliance. As hope grew, so did tensions, doubts, and the heavy weight of leadership. Uneasy peace. The quiet after the storm was deceptive. Within Haven, the once united band of survivors now found themselves at odds over strategy, priorities, and trust. Isla sat in the council chamber, a converted chamber deep within the mountain vaults, facing her most difficult challenge yet. Around her, The leaders of Haven's factions argued with increasing bitterness. Dr. Elena Myrov, the chief archivist, was insistent on caution. "We cannot rush headlong into war," she said, her voice steady but firm. "Our strength lies in knowledge, in patience. The archivist's reach is vast. We must gather intelligence, build alliances carefully." Roan, the battle-hardened Valkyrie, slammed his fist on the table. "Patience gets people killed. We struck a blow. Yes, but it won't last. We need to arm every able survivor, train fighters, and take the fight to the archivists now before they regroup." Lyra, the sharpshooter and scout, eyed them both warily. "Both of you make good points, but we're divided. That weakness will be our undoing." Isla felt the pressure mounting. The burden of leadership was heavier than any weapon. Cracks in the team. Beyond the council, the tension seeped into the Ember team itself. Eli, still recovering from his wounds, grew restless and impatient. "We can't sit here waiting for permission," he said quietly to Isla. "There are people out there suffering. Every moment counts." Mace, ever the voice of reason, countered, "We need a plan. Rushing without support is suicide." Isla tried to mediate, but even within her core team, doubts flared like embers threatening to ignite a destructive blaze. The shadow of betrayal. Complicating matters was the arrival of a new figure, a man named Yarrick, claiming to be from an off-world resistance group sympathetic to humanity's cause. He came bearing gifts, data modules, advanced tech, and promises of allies beyond the stars. Dr. Myrov was cautious. "We cannot verify his claims. We must be wary." Roan was more skeptical, eyeing Yarrick with suspicion. "Could be a trap." The archivists used deception as well. Jarek's presence stirred the fragile alliances further. Some saw hope in his words. Others whispered of betrayal. Secrets unveiled. One night, Isla accessed the archives in secrecy, searching for answers about the archivists' true motives and their enigmatic tactics. She uncovered disturbing revelations. The archivists had been experimenting with human minds, integrating their consciousness into a hive network designed to control entire populations. The war was not just physical but psychological, a war to strip humanity of free will. Isla shared her findings with the council. "This changes everything," she said. "We're fighting not only for survival, but for our very souls." Rallying the fractured. Faced with internal strife and external threats, Isla called for a gathering of Haven's inhabitants, a moment of truth. In the cavernous central hall, lit by flickering lamps and the glow of holographic banners, she spoke from the heart. "We are broken," she admitted, "but from fractures comes strength. We must unite, not just as fighters or scholars, but as one people." Her words resonated. Eli stepped forward, his youthful fire tempered by pain and resolve. "I'll lead a strike team. We'll find others like us, survivors willing to fight." Mace pledged support. Roan nodded with grudging respect, and even Dr. Myrov agreed on the need to balance caution with action. The spark of unity. The fractures within Haven did not vanish overnight, but a fragile unity began to form. Plans took shape to expand their network of survivors, to share knowledge and resources, and to prepare for the long war ahead. Isla looked out over the crowd, feeling the weight of her promise and the fire kindling in human hearts. The battle for the stars was no longer just about resistance. It was about reclaiming identity, purpose, and hope. The victory at the relay station had sparked hope, and the fractures within Haven were beginning to mend. But beneath the surface of their burgeoning rebellion, a deeper secret stirred, a secret buried in the ruins of a long-forgotten world, waiting to be uncovered. The discovery. It began with a faint signal, a whisper in the static, that reached Haven's communications hub. Lyra, ever the vigilant scout, was the first to notice the anomaly while monitoring distant frequencies. "Commander," she called, her voice tight with excitement and caution, "there's something buried out beyond the northern ridge. An old outpost, or maybe a relic from the days before the fall." Isla and Roan gathered swiftly, poring over the data. The signal was faint but distinct, encrypted transmissions, possibly pre-archivist, and vital clues to humanity's lost history and technology. The expedition. Without hesitation, Isla assembled a small expedition team. Lyra, Roan, Mace, and a few trusted fighters prepared for the journey into the unknown wastelands beyond Haven. The trek was perilous. The land was scarred by the devastation of centuries, twisted metal skeletons of cities, barren fields poisoned by radiation, and the ever-present threat of archivist patrols. Each step forward was a gamble against nature and machine alike. Ruins of the past. After days of travel, the team reached the outpost, an ancient facility half buried in ash and stone, its towering walls cracked but defiant. Inside, the air was stale with the weight of time. Flickering consoles hummed faintly, their data cores still faintly alive beneath layers of dust. Roan carefully interfaced with the mainframe, fingers flying over the ancient controls. "Wait," he said, eyes widening. This place was part of a secret project, Project Phoenix. It was designed to preserve humanity's greatest minds and technology in case of apocalypse. Isla felt a chill, a seed of hope, or a trap? Secrets in the code. As Roan and Mace worked to decrypt the data, Lyra and the others kept watch. The facility was a time capsule, preserving blueprints for advanced weapons, medical breakthroughs, and even early Valkyrie exoskeleton designs. Technology thought lost. But then they uncovered something darker. Files indicating the project's ultimate failure, the deaths of many scientists, and hints that the archivists had infiltrated the program from the start. The archivists weren't just conquerors, Lyra whispered. They were saboteurs. The hidden chamber. Roan's screen flickered, revealing a hidden chamber beneath the outpost. The team pried open the reinforced door to find a cryogenic vault. Hundreds of pods lined the walls, each containing a suspended human figure. Isla's breath caught. Frozen survivors? Elena's voice came through their comms, urgent and cautious. "Commander, do not attempt to awaken them without full analysis. We don't know what state their minds or bodies might be in." But the temptation was overwhelming. The possibility of reclaiming lost knowledge, allies, and hope pushed Isla's team to carefully begin diagnostics. Awakening the past. After tense hours, one pod's system stabilized and a figure stirred, a woman, eyes flickering open with confusion and fear. She was dressed in an old-world uniform, her voice raspy but clear. "Where am I? How long?" The woman introduced herself as Dr. Celine Voss, a lead scientist of Project Phoenix. She spoke of desperate days before the archivist invasion, of efforts to save humanity's greatest minds in stasis, and warnings about the Hive network they had failed to stop. A new ally and a new threat. Dr. Voss's knowledge was invaluable, offering insights into archivist technology and human resilience. But her presence also brought danger. Unknown to the team, the cryogenic vault's activation sent signals into the void, alerts that the archivist would soon detect. Back at Haven, Isla grappled with this new responsibility, balancing hope and caution, while preparing for the inevitable storm. The weight of legacy. As the expedition returned to Haven with Dr. Voss and the recovered data, the community's mood shifted. The echoes of the past breathed new life into their struggle, but also reminded them of the high stakes. Isla stood before the gathered embers, her voice steady but resolute. "We carry the legacy of those who came before us, their triumphs and their failures. We are the spark beneath the ashes, and it is our duty to rise and rebuild." The stars beyond the mountain peaks gleamed brighter that night, as if bearing witness to humanity's enduring spirit. End of Chapter 7. Would you like me to expand Chapter 8 next, or assist with any other part of your story? You said, explain Chapter 8 into 1,500 words. ChatGPT said, certainly. Here's a detailed expansion of Chapter 8. The tides turn from the stars remember us, crafted to fit 1,000 to 1,500 words. Chapter 8. The tides turn. The arrival of Dr. Celine Voss and the revelations from Project Phoenix brought a surge of hope to Haven. Yet, with new knowledge came new dangers. The war against the archivists was no longer just about survival. It was about seizing the momentum to fight back, and the tides of conflict were about to shift dramatically, preparing for the counterstrike. Within the cavernous halls of Haven, a palpable energy buzzed through the air. For the first time in generations, humanity dared to imagine not merely surviving but pushing back. Isla paced the command center, poring over the decrypted blueprints from Project Phoenix. The data was staggering: advanced weapon designs, enhanced Valkyrie exoskeleton blueprints, and, most importantly, a way to disrupt the Archivist Hive network. Beside her, Dr. Voss spoke urgently. The Hive's neural link is their greatest strength and their vulnerability. If we can target the core nodes, we can fracture their control. Roan leaned in, fists clenched. So we hit them where it hurts. Hard and fast. Mace, pragmatic as ever, cautioned, but their defenses will be stronger. We need precise intelligence. Lyra tapped into comm channels, coordinating with distant survivor cells. We've established contact with other enclaves. They're ready to join. The formation of the coalition. What began as isolated pockets of resistance were rapidly uniting under a single banner. Embers from Haven, led by Isla, reached out via encrypted networks to survivor groups scattered across the wastelands. Messages crackled with urgency and resolve. We fight together or fall alone. By pooling resources, sharing technology, and coordinating strikes, the disparate bands of humanity were becoming a true force, one that could stand against the Archivist tide. The first strike. The plan was bold. A coordinated assault on a critical Archivist Hive node located deep within the ruins of a once thriving metropolis now known as Obsidian Spire. It was a fortress of mechanical might, heavily guarded and nearly impenetrable. Isla handpicked the strike team, Roan, Mace, Lyra, and Eli among them. Their mission: infiltrate the Hive, plant a series of electromagnetic disruptors, and escape before the swarm closed in. As they prepared, the air was thick with tension and determination. Infiltration. The journey to Obsidian Spire was fraught with peril. Hovering drone patrols, automated turrets, and shifting terrain required every ounce of skill and stealth. Under the cover of a radioactive storm, the team slipped inside the Hive's perimeter. The interior was a labyrinth of dark corridors pulsating with mechanical life, organic machinery fused with cold steel. Lyra's sharpshooting took out patrolling sentinels silently, while Mace and Eli hacked security grids, clearing their path deeper into the heart of the Hive. At the core of the Hive, they found the neural nexus, a massive crystalline structure thrumming with energy, linking thousands of Archivist units in a network of control. Isla placed the disruptors carefully, each device designed to send a pulse that would fracture the Hive's communication matrix. As the final disruptor armed, alarms blared. The Hive roared to life, machines swarming from every direction, their synthetic limbs striking with lethal precision. The escape. A brutal battle ensued. The team fought with every skill honed through years of hardship, plasma bursts, precision shots, and raw determination. Roan engaged multiple Sentinel units, his exoskeleton armor glowing with energy. Lyra's sniper fire cleared the path, while Mace coordinated their retreat through hacked doorways and sealed vents. Despite injuries and close calls, they burst from the Hive as the disruptors detonated, sending shockwaves that crippled the Archivist network across a wide radius. The aftermath. Back at Haven, the impact was immediate. Communications among Archivist forces faltered, their automated patrols confused and scattered. For the first time, the tide truly seemed to be turning. Yet, victory was bittersweet. Eli lay unconscious, wounded in the fray. Isla's resolve hardened as she stood beside him. This is only the beginning. We'll carry him through and carry humanity forward. Ripples across the stars. News of the assault spread rapidly through the Coalition's networks. Embers everywhere were inspired, rallying to the cause with renewed vigor. However, the Archivists were not idle. Deep within their core systems, an ominous signal pulsed, a call for reinforcements and ruthless retaliation. Isla knew the war was escalating, but the momentum was theirs. Humanity was no longer the hunted, it was becoming the hunter. A new dawn. Under the pale light of a distant star, Isla stood on Haven's ridge, watching the horizon. The sky was streaked with auroras, nature's silent applause for their courage. She whispered to the winds, "The tides turn, but the battle continues. For every ember that falls, 1,000 more will rise. We are the storm beneath the stars." The successful strike against the Archivist Hive node was a turning point, but the war was far from over. The repercussions of their bold assault rippled through the galaxy, stirring the embers of resistance and igniting the fury of their mechanical foes. As the coalition of survivors grew stronger, so too did the archivists resolve to crush humanity's hope once and for all. The aftershock. Days after the assault on Obsidian Spire, Haven was alive with activity. The coalition had not only disrupted a vital hive network, but also shattered the myth of the archivist's invincibility. Survivor enclaves from distant systems sent envoys bearing weapons, supplies, and pledges of allegiance. Yet amidst the celebrations, Isla felt the weight of impending storm clouds. Dr. Voss had warned her that the archivists would retaliate swiftly and mercilessly. Inside the command center, Isla reviewed incoming intelligence reports. Satellite feeds showed massive mobilizations of archivist fleets converging toward Haven's system. "They're coming," Roan said grimly, "and they're bringing everything, preparing for the siege." The coalition's forces scrambled to prepare defenses. The ancient cities and barren wastelands around Haven became battlefronts as teams worked tirelessly to set up fortifications, anti-air emplacements, and energy shields powered by salvaged reactors. Isla's team oversaw training for new recruits, people with little combat experience but fierce determination. Among them was a young woman named Mira, a sharpshooter with exceptional instincts but haunted by the loss of her family. Eli, now recovering steadily, trained alongside the recruits, his presence a symbol of hope and resilience. The calm before the storm. One night, under the pale glow of twin moons, Isla walked the ramparts alone. The silence was heavy, a fragile peace before the inevitable chaos. She reflected on how far humanity had come, from scattered survivors hiding in shadows to a united force daring to fight back. But she knew the upcoming battle would test every ounce of their resolve. A faint pulse echoed in her communicator, a coded message from Yarrick, the enigmatic figure who had arrived months earlier. His warning was clear. The archivists have found a way to weaponize the hive's neural core. If they succeed, entire systems will fall under their control in an instant. The first wave. The siege began just before dawn. Archivist war machines descended like a metallic tempest, their advanced weaponry cutting through the coalition's outer defenses. Plasma beams and missile strikes lit the sky as Haven's fighters scrambled to repel the onslaught. Roan led a counterattack squad, engaging the enemy's vanguard in brutal close-quarters combat. Mace coordinated the defenses from the command center, rerouting power to critical systems and directing reinforcements. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Despite superior technology, the archivists underestimated humanity's tenacity and willingness to sacrifice. Shadows within. Amidst the external war, internal dangers lurked. Suspicion grew over Jarek's true intentions. Some whispered that his arrival had been orchestrated by the archivists to sow discord. Isla confronted Yarrick privately. His calm demeanor barely concealed the storm beneath. "I came to help," he insisted. "But the archivists are more dangerous than you realize. They've embedded agents within us, people who will betray you." Isla's trust wavered, but she knew the coalition could not afford fractures now. Still, vigilance was paramount. The turning point. After days of relentless fighting, the tide of battle shifted. A daring strike team led by Eli and Mira infiltrated the enemy's front line to destroy a newly deployed neural weapon, the Dominion Pulse, a device capable of enslaving human minds instantly. Navigating through labyrinthine corridors and evading deadly sentinels, they reached the weapon's core. Myra's steady hand and Eli's quick thinking disabled the device just moments before activation. Their success was a beacon of hope, but it came at a cost. Mira was gravely injured. Unity in loss. Back at Haven, the community mourned and healed. Isla visited Myra's bedside, seeing in her the fierce spirit that defined their fight. "This war will test us all," Isla said softly, "but we will endure, because we fight not just for survival, but for our future." The echoes of war rang across the stars, but humanity's light burned brighter still. The call to arms. The coalition's victory emboldened more survivors to join the fight. Haven transformed from a hidden refuge into a symbol of resistance. Isla addressed the coalition, her voice carrying over the comm channels. "The archivists believe they can silence us. They are wrong. We are the spark that will ignite the galaxy. Stand with me, stand for humanity." Her words were met with cheers, pledges, and the unbreakable resolve to keep fighting. The storm ahead. As the chapter closed, Isla stared into the horizon, aware that the war's fiercest battles lay ahead. The archivists were adapting, growing more ruthless. But humanity, united and unyielding, was ready to face whatever darkness came. The tides of war were turning, but the story was far from over. The war against the archivists had stretched humanity to its limits, but in the face of overwhelming odds, the indomitable spirit of Haven and its coalition stood firm. Now, as the final battle loomed on the horizon, Isla and her allies were poised to secure a future not just for themselves, but for all humankind. This was their legacy, the ember that would ignite the stars. The calm before the final storm. In the days leading up to the climactic confrontation, Haven was a hive of preparation and reflection. The survivors gathered to repair their defenses, tend to the wounded, and steel themselves for what was to come. Isla walked through the encampment, absorbing the quiet determination etched on every face. The community had grown beyond a ragtag band of survivors. It had become a family united by purpose. Dr. Celine Voss was busy analyzing the latest intelligence captured from the archivist forces. "They're consolidating power at the central nexus," she reported. "If we take it, we can sever the hive's control network entirely." Rallying the coalition, Isla convened a council with leaders from the various survivor enclaves, military commanders, and scientists. The strategy was clear: launch a coordinated assault on the central nexus, deep within the heart of the archivist domain. "Each of us carries a piece of humanity's future," Isla reminded them. "We fight as one." Plans were finalized for simultaneous strikes targeting the Nexus's defenses, the hive nodes, and supply lines to cripple the archivist's ability to retaliate. The battle begins. At dawn, the Coalition's forces surged forward like a tidal wave. Fighter squadrons tore through the skies, while ground troops advanced through the shattered wasteland. Isla led the primary assault team, supported by Roan, Mace, and a now-recovered Mira, whose resilience had become legendary. The battle was brutal. Archivist war machines erupted from hidden bunkers, firing relentless volleys of plasma and energy beams. The ground trembled under the weight of mechanized legions. The heart of the Nexus. Breaking through the outer defenses, Isla's team reached the central Nexus, a massive, pulsating core of crystalline energy surrounded by an impenetrable force field. Dr. Voss and Roan worked feverishly to develop a countermeasure. Using recovered Phoenix technology, they crafted a device to disrupt the energy field and collapse the hive's neural network. As they prepared the device, waves of archivist drones swarmed the compound. Sacrifice and resolve. In the midst of chaos, Mira saved Roan from a deadly assault, but was grievously wounded. The team pressed onward, her sacrifice fueling their determination. Isla activated the countermeasure. The force field flickered and shattered, exposing the core. With a surge of coordinated attacks, the Coalition unleashed everything they had. Explosions rocked the Nexus as the hive's network began to collapse. Victory and loss. The central Nexus erupted in a blinding wave of energy, signaling the end of the Archivist's control over their mechanized armies. As silence fell, the survivors gathered to mourn those lost and to celebrate their hard-won victory. Isla stood before the remnants of the hive, a symbol of humanity's resilience. "We are the embers that refuse to die," she declared. "From the ashes, we will rebuild. Our legacy is not just survival, it is hope. A new dawn for humanity." With the Archivists defeated, the galaxy began to heal. Survivor enclaves reconnected, rebuilding civilizations on the foundation of cooperation and shared strength. Isla looked to the stars, knowing their journey was far from over, but confident that humanity's ember would continue to burn bright, guiding future generations toward a future forged by courage, unity, and unyielding spirit.